All right. Welcome on back to the Joker Tower Season 2. So, I honestly don't know what we're going to get. If we're going to get City Texture Pack. Oh, my microphone was really close. Sorry. Hold on. I don't know if we're going to get. Yeah, it looks like City Texture Pack, but that's okay. Like we discovered, the migraine effect doesn't go as bad if you have the railroad. And even then, you don't got to look at. Sorry. It really bothers me, and I don't want it to be bothering other people. So. All right, we should always act in ways of general respect. Also, let's go see what this guy has. Oh, blue ice, which is very valuable. I'll take some cheap wood. And more flowers, why not? Actually, I'll take this too. Okay, you gotta be careful because you will drown if you AFK or don't pay attention. So, and before we get too deep into all this stuff, I should reinforce that all of these projects are law-abiding community. The purpose isn't to like I'm not hoping for this guy to like have anything illegal happen to him, I guess is the way I should say that. And I'm really debating going back and deleting the post where I outed him to Redman. But at the same time not. And then with Elon just, quote unquote outing Trump or President Trump. Because he is the president, whether you like it or not, he won. I mean, he is the boss. But we got to make sure that the boss is following the rules. So, same with Christian rules. Like, I mean, and I should state right here, right now, I in no way think that we should be a Christian nation. I think that is a horrible idea. I think history shows that the Nazis are an example of what can go wrong from that idea. And anyone who supports it should make that distinction, be like, but we're not going to do anything that the Nazis did. There. Like that, if that was the fine print on trying to make this a Christian nation, I still wouldn't support it because, for a very valid reason, it went very horribly wrong the first time somebody tried to do that. So, and even England, which was like heavily religious and had like the church be part of their political, I think, I don't know. I don't really know British government and history in England and enough to really speak on that. But as far as like understanding what I learned as a kid about my own country was like the original colonists came here to expand the British Empire. There were a bunch of rootin' tootin' rough people that had to do very tough things and live in very difficult conditions and became very self-sustaining and very strong. And then when the British came out, they were just like, hey, you know what? We don't want to do this anymore, so we're not gonna. And then we'll just make this the project box for now. But um, I need some more emeralds. I just used up a bunch, so it's okay. I have tons and tons of melons. But not melancholy. Ha ha ha. Definitely not melancholy. So, anyways, and everybody watching these things and following along with the projects should act accordingly. Like, no violence, no illegal stuff, no vigilante justice. This is all by the book, by the law. I mean, and you got to be careful because as soon as you start making waves and like saying things, like I'm probably being investigated like very heavily, like because of all this. Like even just the tweets or the XApp posts that I've sent, however you want to call them. But that's basically what all this is so far. Has just been XApp observations and comments, and then discussions. Often starting with some very offensive memes, like back when I was doing the political stuff, and I think Trump means well. He's just looking out for the 1% first, and then if there's time, the rest of the Americans. And he'll throw us a bone here and there. But in the grand scheme of things, he's given himself 10 bones for every one bone he gives to a poor person. So, but there's also exponentially more poor people too. So you got to think of it that way, like as a business stance, be like, well, there's the few of us and we get this many. Whereas, I mean, it's still my opinion, you should take the 9 bones or even 8 bones and take those and distribute them evenly amongst the next 8 people to make sure everybody gets 2 or 3. Progressive and flat rates and all this stuff, it's very confusing and it's hard to say like which, like I'd have to see each area, the factors of what happened in their society, why it failed, what was good about it, and then just compare them side by side. And I feel like that's already being done. Like people are making these graphs and charts and stuff. So like at a glance, you can see that this type of economy worked here. I mean, because capitalism definitely works. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, we produce a lot of amazing stuff. However, it could work a lot better. It could have caps and make it to where, like, the poorest of the poor, even just that, like, removing the hardships at the lowest level, like healthcare. It doesn't have to be universal and free healthcare, but at least something that everybody can understand, an easy way to shop for health insurance, like time off every year, like we could make a holiday like, hey, it's National Health Insurance Day. And then everybody doesn't work that day. You know, they just all agree to take a day off and be like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's talk together. Let's work amongst together. And that way it's not so sketchy and so businessy and like there's no like scams or schemes. It's all like above board, just being like, this is what it costs for this is what you can expect for this, and then give like some hypotheticals too, because like saying all that jargon, it doesn't mean anything. And I feel like I'm pretty smart in the world of tech and computers, but I have no idea what's going on with insurance. Like, not a clue. I mean, they start throwing out all these terms, they start talking faster because then there's more that they got to get out. And so anybody that knows what they're saying is going to sound like an alien or like a someone speaking a different language. And, you know, no matter how nice and polite they're going to be, you're going to walk away from it being like, what did I just hear? Like, what, I don't even know what any of that was. And then they'll still just buy something. And at least that's been my experience with pretty much every corporate or nice or good job that I've had. Now, the easy jobs are easy. They say, you know, here's your I-9. Let's like, this is your, you'll claim this in taxes. You should get most of it back because you don't make enough. Like, they don't say that part, but I mean, when it come tax time, that is how it is with like minimum wage and low wage jobs. It's like, all right, cool. I have one source of income. Don't be crazy. I'm not out investing things. I could barely afford to pay rent. Like, all right, boom. And then, you know, and then you get most of your taxes back. It's like, oh, well, we took out this tax. It looks like you didn't make this much, so we're just going to give it all back. And then, boom, you get a big payday once a year, and that's worked out kind of nicely. But again, there's these small things, and not small things, but there's some very specific things, law and healthcare, that can completely decimate a person, or at least set them back seriously, or with some serious setbacks for multiple years. And the easiest one is drug crimes. That's the easiest one. Somebody gets caught with a little baggie of powder or something, boom. In fact, there's a video. It's not appropriate for children. By the way, this is all PG-13 plus. I mean, should probably say that. Of course, I plan on making a YouTube Kids channel and filtering and watering down a lot of this. Like, be kind, be nice to each other, be legit. Like, don't take shortcuts, like stuff like that. You know, things that you can say and still just be like something you'd see on Nickelodeon. Like, that's the level of maybe some toilet humor. Sure, that's always fun. But like overall, nothing worse than like Monty Python. But even Monty Python gets a little raunchy. Um, and so it can't be exactly that. But as a parent, I need to feel comfortable if my kid saw this at this stage. And my bar is set really low, as dads usually are. So I would need my co-parents' input, their mom. And then I would be like, okay, do you think this is acceptable for a kid this age? And I would generally trust her judgment. She's a very good co-parent. She knows what she's doing. She's actually in the healthcare industry. So that's a big plus for me because I mean, if there's ever a medical thing, like one of my kids gets hurt, I'm just like, hey, what's your take on this? Because she knows more than that. Definitely more than me, but more than your average person for sure. And then if there's a computer issue, I'm generally the one in the family to be like, oh, hey, A-Rye, you know, hey, Alex, what's what's going on here? Like, what's this about? So, actually, let's go ahead and hmm, let's get back to work. So we're making the excommunication station, which is hilarious because like it's going to be an initial shock to anybody who's religious and be like, oh no, I don't want to be excommunicated. That means getting kicked out of heaven, basically, for breaking so many of God's laws that the Pope can actually excommunicate you and say, hey, you're not getting into heaven. So that's worse than any prison sentence. That's worse than any death sentence. Like hypothetically, if you believe that stuff. If you don't believe it, then it's just like okay, you know, ooga booga to you too. Like you know, it's like I've actually said that too. So I was in one hospital for a bit in a mental wellness checkup. I was in a loony bin, basically. And no disrespect or offense to anybody else who goes to hospitals. It's just like I grew up thinking that that's what that was, like rubber rooms and all that. And they do have those for sure. But the majority of it is like therapy, counselors, job skills, like get you back on your feet, figure out what the problem is, give you advice, like all these really beneficial things. So I actually went through 3 hospitals during COVID because I was an essential worker building wind turbine blades. So technically, since I was in the renewable energy sector, my job was essential to our economy, which it was too. Those things were millions of dollars, like a wind turbine. And then I just built the blades. Like I didn't even build the shaft and then the control box. Let's see, I need to find, I guess I'll just pick a hallway. You can go a little faster doing that. I think anyway, I don't know. I mean, okay. There we go. That'll work. And then when I find a vein of diorite, mainly diorite, because I have a lot of granite, and I'll get the diorite. So this will also find, I need to find geodes to get more amethyst, so I can continue construction on the Joker Tower. I do have quite a bit of amethyst, but that goes quickly. Like I think I have like 2, maybe 2.5 stacks, but it takes I think a stack per floor, if maybe even more, because it's like a ring. We're one square really, of amethyst. So, anyways, the point of all these projects, shortcuts. Don't take them. Like, just don't take shortcuts with each other. Do things that if everybody found out what you did, they'd be like, oh, or oh, like you gotta make sure. Well, don't do the things that make them go, oh, like disappointment and like how. I mean, you're still like tasked to solve problems all the time, and I guess it is easier to just ask somebody advice. Like if you're about to make a questionable decision, everybody should have, and not your parents. I mean, parents are almost always the first go-to, but they're not always the best go-to because then they might be like, well, phew, you're in trouble, like, and blah, blah, blah. And that's the same with law enforcement. Like, they might not be the first people you ask if this is sketchy or what and how sketchy and illegal and illegal for sure. But, asking an elder of the community, somebody else who knows what the deal is, like, and unfortunately, the way our society works is a lot of our community elders are in jail or prison and like, or like too cautious and stuff. So their decision making is based off of that. And even crime in general in the first place, why anybody would take shortcuts are because shortcuts were taken against them. And basically the idea of that is drug use and substances and all that. And this is all stuff that I learned in 5th grade in DARE. So, if somebody younger than 13, ugh, please, stop watching and go watch something else. I mean, so I still got to just try to be careful. I try not to cuss, say what I say, or adult words in my house. My kids know that certain words are okay. Okay. Well, the way I explain it is they're okay for an adult to say, but it's not good. Like it's not something exciting and fun to do. It offends people, especially people that weren't really signing off on saying, "Hey, I want to go hear some stressful words," and usually they're said in stressful situations, like you hit your finger with the hammer, you're like, "Oh," or the way that my kids learned the F bomb, and they actually said it. My son said it in preschool. I ran over a piece of metal, and I said, "Oh," and I dropped the F bomb, and he heard it. My daughter heard it. They didn't know what they were hearing, and he said it later. Now, the funny thing is my co-parent actually also said it around him as well, around the same time. So when we talked about it, we honestly didn't know who did it. It didn't matter. Like, he could have heard it from one of the other relatives, like, or, someone else at daycare or whatever. I mean, and now potentially all the kids at daycare heard it from my son. Oh, I'm so proud of him, but at the same time, embarrassingly so because of that. Um, So, anyways, and we won't talk too much about that because I do have people out there that might be creepy people that might want to hurt me or my family. And so I just got to assume that I've built up a pretty nice barrier of law enforcement that's already investigating me for a bunch of other silly things that aren't true. And they'll see anything like, oh, wait, hey, this person's stalking him. Like, oh, this guy's popping up in some searches. Like, oh, we better keep an eye on this guy. And that guy is probably doing a lot of, I mean, hopefully not now. I think he's grown up a bit, but the bad stuff that he used to do versus the bad stuff that I used to do, not nearly the same. And the world is waking up to that. And what I'm talking about is sex offenders and stuff. And like, oof, just really garbage people. And it's not that they're garbage people, it's that they're acting like garbage in the moment. Like they can still be redeemed. Like that's the other thing I should say is like we can't be pigeonholing people in these like labels and categories and that's why I don't want anything like really bad to happen to this guy or any of the other people that we'll be hunting and targeting in these projects. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm recruiting a whole army of people in the world to basically keep an eye out for people trying to take shortcuts and attack people, specifically women and children, but really anybody. I mean, there's Cardi B that was drugging guys and robbing them. Like, my moral compass on that, it's like the South Park episode where Ike has a relationship with his teacher and the cops are all just like, nice. I mean, that is kind of the first reaction to a lot of men, just like, wait, like, it's kind of a double standard there. Like, I mean, if it's a young girl that was taken advantage of by a teacher, that's creepy, and that's like, absolutely not. Like, that's actually an outrage. Whereas, like, if it's a boy with like a woman teacher and the roles are reversed, it's almost like not as big of a deal. But when I say it out loud and like, not in the heat of the moment, of course, it's like, that's illegal. Don't do that. But there is kind of a different standard, and that's true with like date rape drugs and stuff like that. Like, it's still pretty messed up to like do it to a dude and especially if it's like with Cardi B, it was to steal from him. She was robbing people. I think it was like that's just messed up in itself because theft is another shortcut that's really frowned upon by literally anybody who's been to jail or prison for any significant amount of time. It's drilled into your mind that you don't steal, you don't lie, you don't cheat, you don't take shortcuts, and you don't sex assault. And that's the worst kind of shortcut that you can take. And then they've learned to forgive. I mean, you have to at some point, especially if you wait, is that the thunder? Oh, yeah, I did pull a bunch of weeds and I got to send an email to my rental company being like, hey, look, they're almost gone. And it was like a forest back there, and I've almost got all of them pulled again. This is the second time I've pulled the entire yard. The first time it took a while, I was like, whew, and then I took a break for like 2 or 3 weeks. I just didn't do anything. And then it rained a lot down here, up here in northern Colorado. That's where I'm at. And just rained a ton, and the weeds just exploded again. And so now I'm doing it all over again. But I didn't have a lawnmower before, and now I do. I gotta push one because the yard's just so messed up. Like, it's not even just that it's overrun with weeds. It's not laid out level. Like, I mean, there's a bunch of rocks that you could tell somebody tried to make a driveway out of river rocks, and then those river rocks were kind of raked and otherwise moved over into the general area of the yard. So I got to figure out, like, probably go back and re-rake them back into the driveway. And I didn't have a rake, or let alone a leaf rake or a hard tooth rake. There's like the flimsy tooth rake that's more for leaves, and then there's the hard, like, stiffer spines. Anyways, there's two rakes I generally have when doing yard work, and I grew up doing yard work and maintaining a garden and all that. Not like for real, like my parents would do most of the real stuff, but I'd go out there and help, and and I think every family unit should have that. I'm gonna have my kids doing that eventually. They're still in that spot where I'm like, have fun, do all this, and they already do jobs for me. Like they'll make video graphics, or they'll make a cartoon character, they'll like make a comic on Scratch, or they'll otherwise learn. They used to read to me, and I used to read to them, but we kind of grew out of that, and I need to reintroduce that. But they do get a lot of that at their other house, so I don't push on that as much. I'm more of like let them play video games type of, and they're learning tons, especially about cybersecurity and social engineering. Like that's pretty, because I'm constantly telling them. So why do you think that? And we talk through situations, make sure they're fed. So that's the biggest thing. Is like if you don't eat, you're much quicker to anger and emotion because you already have that anger and emotion of being hangry. Everybody is. That's just a human trait. And so, and that goes back to like the projects, like and I'm not going to go out and fix any problem by myself. One of my favorite statues and sayings is a statue at Colorado State University, my alma mater, where I got my undergrad and my certificate in cybersecurity in a 6-month boot camp and a 4-year degree program, which took me the better part of a decade, but we won't go into that just yet. But anyways, they have a statue that says, I can see what I see because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And I know it's not even that exact direct quote, and I think it's from like Aristotle or Galileo or one of the old astronomers, but it's the concept of human thinking that some person, some human like you and me, said, I can see pretty far. I know a lot. Like I know a lot about a lot of stuff, but it's only because other people told me, other people taught me, other people took the time to guide me with these things. And that's very true. I did Cub Scouts, I did sports, football for 7 years. I did track for at least 4 years. I don't know if I did track in middle school. I mean, I think everybody did like a track and field day, but actually, as I say that, I might have actually done track in seventh and eighth grade. I don't honestly remember. Oh God! Oh, oh man. Well, that'll wake you up. I thought I was gonna die. Oh, okay. So we found this. The unexpected happened. Oh, this is. We're not gonna go too far. I'm gonna go back to there, and there's some iron and stuff. But I do want to kind of like take a peek through this, but also be careful because that same thing could happen here. Minecraft loves to put the little traps. It's becoming less and less forgiving. Whoops. I definitely want that. Okay. So, and that happens naturally just the way that like the mechanics are. Like anyone who's specifically wanting to mine diorite is going to scrape away diorite at some point where it leaves a bottomless or well, an almost bottomless pit or a pit to fall into, potentially get hurt or even die. Oof. All right, anyways, back to this. So, I don't even know what I was talking about. It weeble wobbles a lot, but guidance basically, communal guidance that we see on Twitch and YouTube and content creators and all these wonderful tools of communication that we have. And that was my least favorite class at first, but my most favorite class at the end was communication technology. It was a JTC, I forget what level. I think even like a 3 something, or maybe it was a 413, but I was like, oh yeah, a 400 level class. This is going to be advanced, like doing computer programming and like algorithm classes and stuff. And it's like, no, that wasn't advanced at all, but I'm just kidding. Like, it's a different type of thinking. It's still like at that level. Anyways, so I got to get back up there. Just build a walkway. I feel like I've already done this before. All right. I generally try to make the access back like that. Oh, there we go. So now if I ever fall back in there, although look, I already have another diorite. Well, that vein's not good because it's there, and also we should probably do this. Like you can see in other areas. I've been in this area a lot, so let's actually go over there though. Oops. Oh, I got sneeze too. Ugh. So, anyways, because it all boils down to somebody had a lapse in judgment or made a poor decision or for a fleeting moment thought that they could get away with it, or it's just some other way, like the consequences and the accountability wasn't present in their decision making. So then they made a poor decision to take a shortcut against somebody, thinking that oh, it won't come back to bite me. This is fine. When we constantly over the years have these concepts like Jesus and other deities that are watching you all the time, and which very well could, actually. If it really is like ancient aliens, then boom, it really is like aliens watching, be like, what are they doing? And like, and especially if you've seen Men in Black, and of course it's supposed to be a fantasy movie, but at the same time, it has a good point. Like, we just had all this technology out of nowhere. I mean, like, and like an explanation could be aliens or the pyramids could be aliens. Ancient aliens goes into that. Where, and in fact, I've seen some other things where they do have some explanations of how they built the pyramids. Like I've seen some simple machines which use laws of physics and understanding of physics to, like the wedge, the fulcrum, like the pulley system, using water as a transportation tool, like floating things down the river and just having to attach floatable things to make them like basically be able to lift a lot more weight than possible because it's already resting on the water molecules. Um, yeah, all sorts of stuff like that. But Ancient Aliens also talks about the ancient astronaut theory of like, we've been visited by aliens and that's how we actually came to be. Like this Earth didn't have people necessarily, or maybe it wouldn't for another certain amount of time. And then aliens came, dropped off a bunch of people, colonized, and said, we'll be back in a couple thousand years. And that might be partly like, now how like Elon's determining the trip to Mars will only be so long if we do it at this time of the year, because it'll be in this part of the rotation and Mars will be this close to us, whereas any other time of the year that will be much farther away. Like other factors of things that might not be all that relevant or apparent to somebody. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense knowing what I can see now on the shoulders of somebody that knows that stuff. And we have one global community, and that's why that class was my favorite, is because she started off, the professor was like, took out a pen and said, "This is a communication technology." And all of us looked at each other like, "Wait, what?" Like, it was a great icebreaker and first day one like statement to make. And she was like, "Yeah, before the pen, people had to communicate in different, much more difficult ways, and communication was not as available, or it, required extra steps." And just that got us all thinking, like, wow, that's true. Like, you think about the Pony Express when they did have pens, but they didn't have internet. Like, they had someone delivering mail on the back of a horse across the country, and it's like, you had to be very explicit and direct with what you said, or like Morse code, where people would communicate with dots and dashes, and they would make a message and have to decipher the message, which now, like, like a 5-year-old can pick up their parent's cell phone and call their friend. I mean, don't do that. That's still too young to be using a phone, but that's possible. And if it was like a monitored call or like a class call like we had in Zoom during the pandemic, like, you could have a bunch of parents and kids have their kids talk to each other online. Like, there's your social skills, and you didn't have to go all the way over there and make a big deal out of it and plan things out, which are still good, play dates and all that, and like physical in-person social interaction. But at the same time, like, people are just as capable of like, hey, let's talk about this, let's plan this, and let's do this. And then, you know, that's actually what I'm doing now, is I'm working out a lot of plans with people all over the world. And again, legal, law-abiding plans that the government is already painfully aware of. Probably rolling their eyes and groaning, because part of it is like hippie farms, which is hilarious because like all the hippies and like, cannabis enthusiasts back in the days of prohibition, they all pretty much thought alike. It was just like, man, this thing isn't really all that dangerous. Alcohol's really the problem. But until we get people to stop spending so much money on alcohol or stop demonizing weed, then, it'll be different. And what do you know? Like, the Colorado economy is still pretty heavy on alcohol, but at the same time, and most of our economy is tourist economy. People come here to go skiing, go on vacation, let loose, get a little crazy, and then they end up hitting up people. And it's like, we have a thriving black market that we shouldn't have. Like, the war on drugs should just be done. But that's kind of part of the nature of the beast. Like, you have somewhere where like people want to go, they're going to want to do certain things, especially after drinking. And then it's like, okay, well, there's capitalism for you. So, but now we have good legal markets for cannabis and even natural psychedelics, which markets isn't the correct word, as things like mushrooms, DMT, ibogaine, they're not legal to sell. You still get in trouble, and understandable. Like, you want to make sure that people are being careful and not just using it as a get rich quick scheme. Like, we still need safety and control, because like psychedelics are very powerful tools. Just like a firearm is a very powerful tool, not a toy. And I was taught at a very young age, 5 years old, how to operate a firearm and the importance of it. That is not a tool. In fact, I learned from a guy that had, I think he was missing both hands, or no, he was missing both legs and one hand. He got blown up by a grenade in war. Now, that's the best person to teach you gun safety, because you just automatically assume that could happen to me, which was actually still powerful, because I remember that back when I tried to enlist in the Marines. Didn't work out. But I kept that in mind. I was like, if I get hit with a grenade, I could be in a wheelchair teaching kids how to shoot guns and like freaking them out because I got a claw for a hand. Like, the guy was awesome. Like, I mean, he was very kind and patient, and he knew the weight, the gravity of what he was teaching us. And he saw kids as young as me. Like, I think that was like the earliest you could get in there at the time. I don't know. But 5 years old, fifth grade or first grade, because I had my first rifle. Like, I had to take the hunter safety courses before I could shoot a gun, and then I had my first rifle. I went shooting first grade, second grade. Not a lot, like we went up a few times, but that way my dad would feel comfortable handing me a loaded gun and being like, okay, now shoot that target. Like, he wanted a formal, official community training from a community elder that knew about gun safety. So, and that's the same with this cybersecurity, substance safety. Like, I have friends that are addiction counselors. One particular friend that's in Mexico. I'd say more of a colleague. I think I kind of freak her out still. I mean, I know she says she forgives me for some of the wilder stuff, but like when I was a knucklehead and we were hanging out a lot, I feel like there's some things that she probably was upset about, and understandably so. It makes me sound so much worse than it actually is, but I can't speak freely per se because, you never know who's listening to these things. So my boss just fires me the next day. I saw you YouTube. No, they wouldn't do that. They might talk about some of these things and be like, hey, let's discuss this. Or if I ever got famous, I'd need to be careful what I said. But for now, it's just me mumbling while playing video games. I love it. All right, we do actually need granite, but like I was saying before, I think we have a whole bunch somewhere. Okay. I kind of want to even get more, like, and then I do this so I can see how many I have left to hold. Once that fills up to 64, then I need to stop. And yeah, a lot of this went to the temple, the fake artificial ski slope. Yeah, skiing and snowboarding used to be very big in my life. Not lately, because I haven't been able to afford to go for a long time, or had dependable friends that I'd want to go with. Like there's a whole bunch of factors there. So, but that's something that I feel like everybody should at least have the opportunity to do. All families with kiddos should be able to go up to the ski resort, be able to experience that lifestyle and all that. So I think I might still try to get involved in ways to help facilitate that. I have a buddy who actually did that with a nonprofit organization for party buses and transport to and from concerts and shows. So that's pretty cool. But yeah. Oh, let's do that and that. All right, so that's about 30 minutes. We'll fill this up, finish this. I mean, it's already almost full. Or, well, one is. I definitely want to get iron. So, yeah. And I got to be very careful because if I out the guy too much and he's not dealt with, like, ultimately, the victim in my '09 case, I want him to have to apologize to any women that he slipped drugs to. That's like a good scalable way. In computer science, we would call that scalable, a scalable solution to a problem. Let him do it, trust him to do it. Um, but I don't trust him to do it because if he would have done it by now. No, that's the thing. And the whole point of the switcheroo is so they could get away with that and not be held accountable for what they were doing and only be held accountable for, well, I knew that she was drugged. Okay. And that's what this guy told me that he was. That's what the cop said. It's like they caught him admitting to knowing that they were drugged. 5 years probation. The Colorado statute for that is actually 4 to 16 years per such instance, depending on the severity of it. That's what I was looking up the other day. 4 to 16 years in prison. So, to me, that's what would be fair, is about 8 years, because it was 2 instances. If we gave him the minimum, but since he avoided it, he dodged it, and I think he even went and served in the military, like, so he was like free to go drink on probation too. Like, you're definitely not learning a lesson. Like, no, I would say maybe even 16 years, but that's pretty harsh. He might come after me. I mean, again, the cops and the FBI, I'm pretty sure they have a pretty healthy, what's A-Rye doing today? Oh, okay, good. And it's like, so they're gonna see it if he ever does try anything. And even if I get a whiff, if anybody tells me they see him in town, because I got people watching for him, if anyone tells me that he's even in town, then I'm gonna just go to the cops and be like, hey, I think this guy's after me. Why? Oh, because I said some things. They'll probably chuckle at it. They'll be like, oh God, okay, well, yeah, well, I'm gonna get a restraining order on him actually pretty soon, because one of my projects is I'm gonna make a hippity hop video with a friend possibly, and it's gonna be called the SOSO Switcheroo. It's I'm even laughing as I say that because it's basically outing this guy with not using his name, but explaining the process from which he assaulted and preyed on women in college. And then as women hear it, they'll be like, "Hey, that happened to me," which actually did happen to me. Sorry, I know we're running over time, but that did happen to me. Once I got out of booking, I got bonded out. My family kind of came and bailed me out. for fighting this guy. I mean, again, like this guy punched me because I'd said, "Hey, what about the switcheroo?" And that was the instance he punched me. Not when I called him out for stealing stuff from me, not when I called him out for stealing money from me, stealing girlfriends from me. I said, "Hey," and assaulting, preying on the people I cared about, at least even if I didn't care about them at the time. He brought an ex-girlfriend of mine from high school that I dated for like 2 weeks. And he was like, "Hey, look who I found," and proceeded to assault her. And like, I don't know if it was consensual or not. Like, she seemed kind of angry. Like, I don't, we weren't really all that close, but there's one more reason why this piece of trash, and he was just being a piece of trash at the time, he can be redeemed after, he repays his debt to society. Um, exactly. So, anyways, I put him on blast though, and like that post had like 800 views within like 5 minutes, and Redman saw it, his people saw it, and so now it's like South Park, that Scott Tenorman episode where Radiohead comes and says, "Oh wow, what a little crybaby." Now the music world, the hip hop world, knows that this guy's a P Diddy Diddy Poof Jr., a Bill Cosby wannabe, or the white P Diddy, and he's going to be exposed eventually. But like until then, he needs to be given a chance. I'm not talking to him. I'm going to find somebody else to talk to him because I'm done with him. I removed him from all my Facebook accounts and all that. He's got several as well. But anyways, and I'm going to let somebody else be the diplomat and the emissary, the go-between, because he lost his chance to talk to me. All those years without saying a single kind thing, nah, he lost his connection, his communication, if you will. Even if you were to comment on these YouTube videos or even try to send me a message now, I'd be like, nah, I don't think he is though. Because imagine somebody combing these videos, making sure I'm not putting their name out there for committing a crime. By the way, this is all like law enforcement. I'm not a cop though. I'm not a judge. I'm not a jury. I'm just a concerned citizen rambling and musing. So anyways, with that note, ta-ta for now. And actually that's why it's raining in real life, and so there was some thunder. I might go back out there because it's cool without the sun, but you got to watch out for lightning. You get struck up here, so it's not like Minecraft. I'd actually could possibly die from it, so I'm going to be careful and just pull weeds as I'm able and send pictures. Make sure my renting company knows I'm serious and I'm a good, solid tenant. So, ta-ta for now. I'll see you in the next one.